understand these principles, and Carr got into them quite extensively, then you free your mind to realize that if we're energy, then we're also everywhere, because energy is everywhere, and we're already everywhere, and all we have to do is change our mind to be in to bilocate to a different frequency, a different dimension, and so forth. So by clearing our minds, it gave us the opportunity to just sit quietly. And he said, your brain, which is a computer, will operate to its optimum capacity to maintain the physical idea of a physical vessel, but it operates all the components, all the machinery inside the machine, which we call a body. But it won't, anything outside of that is an outlaw. It does not accept anything that doesn't relate to its function, and that's taking care of the physical third-dimensional concept that we're holding.
So like a spiritual technology in a way that like spiritual bilocation through technology and consciousness interface or something of that nature.
Yes. And he said that once you realize that we are all interconnected, that we're all really one collective consciousness, then again that frees your mind up to realizing that, well, if I'm just energy and I'm not tied to the ideas that I've been programmed to accept, then I can create anything I choose at any given time. And in this particular case, he wanted us to choose silence, to just completely keep our minds quiet a long enough time to go through the experience. He said your brain will try to come in with thoughts, just ignore them. Don't pay any attention to the thoughts. You're safe. You always have been. You always will be safe. You're protected by who and what you are, and you are an infinite being experiencing a physical reality. So anything that comes at you on the way of a third-dimensional definition, just ignore it, because you're not operating on that frequency. So we quieted our minds, and actually we thought at that moment we weren't experiencing anything when we heard Carr say the experiment was over, to come down to debriefing, and we looked at each other and said, well, really nothing happened. We didn't, our bodies didn't move, the ship didn't move, so we thought. And we came down into the lab and into Carr's office, and we said, well, it didn't really work, did it? And he says, well, you think not? And we said, we didn't really go anywhere. And he said, well, that's what your brain is telling you. You didn't do anything because it cannot operate in those frequencies that you were operating in. You were operating in and above those frequencies that it can comprehend. So empty your pockets out, and we did, and we had sticks and stones and all kinds of stuff in our pockets that wasn't there beforehand.
Yeah.
And he said, someday your brain will catch up with you and you'll remember some of this stuff, but right now it doesn't want, it refuses to accept the fact that you did this, because you actually teleported beyond the concept of time and space. There is no time and space unless we create it. And you are creators. All of us are creators, and the experiment was based on the creation that we wanted to benefit mankind by a technology that exists in the ethers, not connected to the conventional technologies that builds automobiles and space stations and rockets, but one that operates on magnetism, which is inexhaustible fuel. You could go forever and never run out of fuel using magnetic power, because it's the glue, it's this gorilla glue that keeps everything held together. Our bodies, our ideas of a body anyway, and all the material world is held together by magnetism. and it's an inexhaustible fuel. And so,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, it seems like that, just that knowledge alone would be the biggest threat to the powers that be, because then, you're not just a commodity anymore. You're not, you can't be controlled once you understand this. And you don't need, the big pharmaceutical companies or the big energy companies or even the war industry would be gone when people realize that everything is one and shifted into that unity consciousness.
True, so very true. And Marsha and I have been going around the country for years now, just on little lecture tours and talks. And we have affected some changes because people come back to us now. We're inundated with email every day with people wanting to know more, so much so that we can't handle it. We have to kind of delegate some of the stuff because but they want to know more. They say, well, I feel this. I feel what you're saying, but I want to know more. And when they realize that the state of existence that they're living in is almost a state of servitude. Well, it is a state of servitude because they are programmed, by the media and so forth to do certain things at certain times, and we're under laws that really are not natural in essence. We're under the admiralty law instead of natural law, and all those things come into play that they want to know more about. And we try to explain them as best as we can. We don't know very much, and in fact, I try to keep my mind empty so that anything of value can come in. But so we kind of refer them off to people that know more about, the admiralty law, for example.
We do a lot of practices here. One is Qigong. It's a very ancient practice, and they call it the practice of no mind. And there's certain forms and postures that you get into, and it opens up all the energy centers of the body, and it's amazing because we're having people actually disappearing, phasing out and then reappearing and things like that. It's kind of amazing. So I understand that technology, but it seems like they had some kind of a laser crystal interface that created that same effect. Somehow through some form of technology.
When you're dealing with energy and crystals, the crystals are extremely useful in holding frequencies. They can hold frequencies for thousands of years, actually, and so that you can, change the vibratory rates of crystal and change the structures of things by understanding sacred geometry and the way you place certain things at certain angles, affecting a change. But I'm very interested in what you guys are doing up where you're at. You're actually inviting in consciousness from other dimensions that are now, because of our dire situation, we're on the edge of extinction. They've been allowed to breach the galactic pact of intervention in any planetary affairs and coming in to help us, and we're very grateful for that.
That's one of the things they said, that they said the prime directive has pretty much been released, and because there was so much other intervention and problems and things that now there's kind of a new game on the books, where they can come in and take more of a hands-on situation. And most of the work they're doing is very similar to the work that you were working with. Most of the work they're doing is through consciousness, and through spiritual technologies that raise the frequencies and change the consciousness and clean up the old program, you might say, or the old grid, that's here now, and clean up some of the old psychometrized energies that are, stuck in ruts, old religious programs and things like that.
Yeah, they're soon, well, even to this day and age right now, realizing that the old Old methods are phasing out. They no longer work as they used to. You can't lie, cheat, and get away with things like you used to be able to, because the system we're gravitating towards now is a system of truth, a system of love, and it's a lot different than deception or even weapons. Or in all our work, we found that on our craft, weapons are obsolete. There's no need for weapons, and we had to love our work and love our craft. It was a synergy between the ships that we were working with and ourselves, and it's very difficult to put into words because it's something that people are not used to hearing, but everything is alive and well in its own dimensions. And the craft itself, we honored it for what it was, and the energy field that it produced, that we were allowed to experience within it, and so forth.
I know when we've had contact with some of the Pleiadians and the more spiritually advanced beings, and a lot of their craft, they talk about them as living entities that they interface with, and some of them are you're almost like married to it. It's in a good way, but it won't work. Some of the craft will not work for anybody else, but its owner or whoever, or the one that
the operators. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I was hedging that. I didn't want to lose the audience by saying that, but we find, and Marsha and I, we live in the woods here in Paradise, California. We have a place here in Prescott, Arizona, and we spend at least a third of our day communing with nature. We have wild animals here and birds and everything, and we find that we get on every day. We get on a more friendlier terms with the nature of these little creatures, and Marsha goes wild when she sees these javelina coming through the yard and stuff. But then we talk to them and they slow down, and and our dog gets friendly with them, and it's just a matter of communing with life itself. There is no danger if there's no fear. Fear creates a danger because it sets up a resistance, and when you have resistance, you have persistence. So whatever you're resisting is going to get stronger and stronger. So we found by having little or no resistance to anything that we kind of welcome them. Welcome the essences of other dimensions to come into our consciousness, and we can communicate with them quite nicely, and it's very fun. It's it's a joyous feeling continuously. We refuse to accept fear or doubt in our demeanor or our vernacular. We say everything is good, whether the brain wants to counter that and say, "Oh, you're being ridiculous" or not. It doesn't matter. We counter the brain by saying, "Oh yeah, just go to sleep. It's all good." And so it is.
Now, neuroscience now is just coming out with a lot of this, and they're seeing that we get billions of bits of information coming through our eyes and our senses, but we disqualify it, and we only choose a small amount of that information that's going to be useful to us, to maintain this 3D reality. And so it's so, everybody goes, I'll believe it when I see it, and not understanding the way the mind works is that you do actually see with your mind, and according to your reference points or what you've chosen your reality to be, versus having new experiences come in and alternative realities and things of that nature, coming in and having to prove themselves to you, which I think is a very, contradictory program that they're running.
Yes, and I had the experience. I worked for a government research lab at one time, and and a friend of mine was in charge of operating the electron microscope, and this was a super modified electron microscope. You could see forever with this thing, and we were talking about energy one day, and he says, "Here, give me your finger." and he stuck it under this scope, and I looked at it, and then I kept putting my finger in and out of the slot where I was told to put it, and all I saw was energy. He says, that's all you really are. There's nothing there but energy. You're holding it together with these cameras that you call eyes, and so many frames per second you're modulating and zoning in on the frequencies necessary for a third-dimensional reality. But you're much, much more than that. You're just energy. And when you realize that, you can expand that to be whatever you want it to be on any level. You're free, and you're not encased in what you call a body, because you're creating that, and you have the powers to create anything you want. So that opened my. Go ahead.
Do you think a lot of the problems we're having is because of not so much even the physical pollution, but consciousness pollution, and the airways are filled with disease and sickness and all these other things, and then by maybe falsely attuning to that, or you could go back to even those creations that do pollute are also a form of consciousness that's been kind of aimed in the wrong direction.
Well, Marsha has something to say on that subject, on the medical field, honey, and with buying into the idea.
Well, what happens, I think, is the collective consciousness comes together, and as we buy into, I'm always telling Ralph, we don't say it's my arthritis or my heart attack or my whatever, because we accept all of the beliefs of the mastermind, you might say, to come into us, and the universal mind says A and amen to whatever we accept as ours. So I think I know it's time for us to stop claiming all of these